Hello.
Hello everyone. Kunal, Raghav, are you here, guys? Kunal, Raghav, Shrishti, anyone can hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we will be starting shortly, just waiting for 2-3 minutes more.
Sure. So
Till
you can
then,
get started whenever you are ready. Okay.
yeah, sure,
Our
ma'am.
host is already here, so he'll be waiting. Cool.
Yes, sure, ma'am.
Almost everyone who is learning DS and Algo thinks that is it enough for placements? With this question, let's start our today's webinar. A very pleasant evening to one and all present here. Today, I, Kunal Agarwal, on behalf of Eduminerva, in collaboration with Coding Ninjas, is here with the solution on is DS and Algo enough for placement? Eduminerva, founded in 2019, is a non-technical society of Bharati Vidyapeeth's College of Engineering. We believe that the right guidance and exposure provided at the right time can effortlessly pave anyone's way to a successful future. Our society aims to provide updates on competition, conferences, journals, scholarships, fellowships, internships, and training. Welcome to day one of our event, Cheat Sheet to Placement, in collaboration with Coding Ninjas. So, without wasting much time, let's see what's the agenda of our today's event. We will be looking all about DSA, importance of DSA in placement, a step-by-step guide for placement. We will also be clearing out your queries, and we will also be taking up questions at the end of the session. So make sure to drop the questions in the chat box.
I can hear Kunal. Guys, maybe give him a thumbs up if you all can hear him. Yes. So Kunal, yes, you are audible.
Okay.
So if you're done, yeah, introduce and then just give it to Prakhar. Okay, he's already
Okay.
waiting. Perfect.
I also request the attendees to stay till the end as the feedback form link will be shared at the end of the session. So now I would like to welcome today's speaker, Mr. Prakhar Shrivastav, data analyst at Deloitte. Prakhar sir has worked upon 3 internships at XXOD, Formexula, Lead in India.ai. He has also won 7 national technical and business hackathons. He is a software developer analyst who has worked at developing several startups and creating software that is used by thousands and worked with most languages and databases. Sir has also have created his own startups and helped other developer startups from ground zero. His hobbies include anime, gaming, and music. We welcome you, sir. We would also like to welcome our alumnus who will be joining us later on. We would also like to welcome the presence of our HOD of EC, Dr. Kirti Gupta ma'am. We would also like to welcome our mentors, Dr. Jolly Parekh and Dr. Yogananda Malhotra ma'am, who has been guiding us since the beginning. Without their efforts and guidance, it would have been impossible for us to have this session. Your presence means a lot to us. Now, I would like to welcome Prakhar sir to begin the session and request the attendees to keep themselves muted and wait till the end of the session for the feedback form. Over to you, sir.
Hey, thank you for the introduction. So the first thing first I'd do is actually I'd take away the mic privileges, just for obvious reasons, because I like to keep my presentation short. And once I've done my presentation, I unmute people and then they can ask me questions and things like that. So currently, I will be taking off my privileges from people. But if you want to talk, raise your hand. If it's necessary, I'll let you unmute yourself. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. If you can, let me know in the chat, and also do let me know uh, if I can communicate in English, if that's okay, right? If you guys want me to do it in Hindi, I'm okay with that as well. So just let me know. So okay, fine. English is okay. Okay, just let me switch on my camera. Okay. This is better. So, hey guys, I am Prakhar Shrivastav. It's nice meeting you guys. So, a little about me and what I'll be discussing about today. I'll basically be discussing about my route of, preparing for interviews, preparing for DSA and these companies, and how it worked for me and my friends, since most of my friends followed these routes. And our college actually promotes this route we followed for major companies, major part of the companies at least. And how you can find out the mistakes, learn from my mistakes, because this presentation is going to show a lot of the mistakes that I made and how I learned from them, and a lot of the success that I gained and insights that I gained from working in coding for the past 4 years and then cracking several companies. So just giving you guys a brief about me. These are some of the companies that I've worked on. There are companies that I have not written here, since one of them is actually my own startup, so I don't work there, I develop there. And one more is a research-based internship where I was working with supercomputers, developing solutions for Russian companies. So that was one solution that I was working on, but I haven't mentioned there because I want to keep it specifically on placement needs. Okay. So the first company that I worked on was Fox Miller. It's an educational technology company. It deals with providing like MOOCs to other colleges and things like that. Most government level colleges are part of this company. So the second company would be Zozode. Zozode actually manages the discounting system of Amazon and Flipkart, both of them. So I learned there how Amazon and Flipkart work in the background. So I got to know a lot from there. Third company on the bottom right is actually the parent company of Foxmula, where I was actually a middleman. I was talking to clients, negotiating deals, and taking the commission in between and delivering products. So I was working part time as a product development lead, and also a person who sat for negotiations. And the last company, I think you guys know, it's Deloitte. It's one of the big four companies. I work as an analyst there. And I got into this company, I guess, in the start of this year. Okay. So what I did, okay, so I think most of you guys already know that DSA is important. I think all of your seniors have already told you. I think you already have also heard from all these channels like Gaurav Sen and Rachit Jain and things like that, right? But what I'm here to tell you is that DSA, even though important, is only a part of your entire profile. It is not something that is exhaustive enough to get you through the interview round. And I am telling you from the perspective that I have interviewed people in the past. Even as a young person, I have interviewed people that were a lot older than me, and I had sat down with proper HR and I got to know their insights, why they reject people, why they hire people. What I got to know when I was conducting technical rounds was that most 99% of the people know DSA who are sitting in the technical round. Because you guys clear the written round. So you guys know DSA. I have no doubt about it. And I expect you to know it before you even enter the room. The problem where people get rejected, what I have seen most of the time of annotations are not off. Give me a second, I'll have to reshare. Great. Thank you for the person who was trying to do that. I mean, that happens a lot. So no issues. Okay, so what I figured out why people actually failed in the first technical round and the second technical round was mostly because of lack of interpretation skills that was very necessary to solve these problems. For giving you an example, when I ask questions like find a diameter of a tree, I usually conceal this question behind a story and then tell that person a story and expect that person to find out how this story correlates to data structures. Giving you an example, find the diameter of a tree. This is a simple question. How it can be twisted. It can be said that there's a tree, like a normal tree that you'll find downstairs, and one of its leaf is infected. The infection is spreading by, like the entire adjacent nodes per second, the count of adjacent nodes per second. Okay. Now, how much time would it take for the entire tree to get infected, counting on the seconds basis? Okay. So you have to return me an answer in seconds, and the answer to this is basically finding out the diameter of the tree. But now I have twisted this question in such a way that there is a concept of one leaf being infected, then its friends being infected, its neighbors being affected, and how this infection is spreading across. Now, this question is slightly twisted. And this type of questions were definitely not answered by most of the people there. So what I would recommend you guys to work on from day one is to increase your interpretation skills. If not here, you guys will reach management level someday very soon, very, very soon. At the pace which industry is working, you will need your interpretation skills there. Might as well learn it now. Okay. And also, most of the questions that come in the software industry, they are not so well defined and close sectored. So I think GitHub recently launched Copilot. I hope you guys know about it. So in Copilot, you define a problem statement in the comments section, and you have to define it very clearly. And then by magic or whatever, GPT-2, they will give you the answer to that problem with almost 99% accuracy. The problem with Copilot was that it cannot interpret a lot of common term languages. If I told that Copilot to design an algorithm to find diameter of a tree, that would have been easy for Copilot. But if I told one tree is getting infected, Ram is standing near it, how long will it take the last leaf to fall on his head? It will make no sense to the Copilot, and it will probably not be able to do it. So you have to understand that the repetitive task of coding normal algorithms and things like that is actually getting automated now. And we saw it with Copilot. And if you don't have interpretation skills that you can convert open-ended questions to closed, mutually exhaustive subsections of a very larger problem, then your value as a software engineer is going to drop. So I will talk more about that very soon and how you can develop it. But let's move on to that. Okay, so giving us a technical criteria why most people did not clear these interview rounds was basically because of their soft skills. See, if I know a person knows DSA, that's a plus for me. But at the same time, if I know that person can't communicate his thoughts perfectly to his teammates, to his seniors, and maybe even the management and production ops level, that person is useless to me. And he might as well be useless to most of the other people that are above. Because if you can't communicate your knowledge inside data and everything like that, so there's no point to it. Might as well learn that before you enter the company. I'll actually tell you guys how to deal with it and what practice our college promoted us, what our seniors told us to do, and it worked out amazingly for us. So it works. So I'll tell you guys that. These are all secrets from my college and things like that you get. Second, let me just reach here for this one single line. Now, my route for development and things like that. Okay. So most people, how they learn DSA is very simple. They'll hear from the seniors, guys, do DSA. They'll understand, okay, I have to do DSA. And then they'll just start doing 10 problems a day, 30 problems a day, probably 1,000 problems a month. And at the end of 3 years, they will hope to get a job. It just does not work like that. It has never worked like that. And just because you're solving a lot of questions, that does not mean you're going to ace your interview. Just the tables are not in your favor. Okay. Now, how to do this? How I did it, and why most of the things that are recommended to me, these are not by just small time guys. These are actually recommended by people who are from IIT Mumbai and things like that. This is their method of learning coding. Their method of learning coding is not just from CodeShip. Their method of learning coding is very vast. They develop a lot, they implement the solutions, and then they actually come to a conclusion that, yes, I know this data structure very well. You tell me to build something, I'll build it. And there should be a motivation behind this. There should be a very proper motivation why you're doing this, why you're doing that. And you need to find that for yourself. I found it very early on in second year itself. And this motivation was not very grand or something that makes me stand off from the crowd or makes me like a very noble person. My motivation was basically to get a PlayStation 5. That's pretty much it. I knew that my parents weren't going to pay for it, and I needed money for it. It's around 60 to 70K. So my entire brain went in the direction that how can I finance this by myself without asking anyone? And the solution that basically came out at the end was that create solutions and sell them to other companies, and they will pay you for it. That's how I actually went about implementing DSA into software and selling it to other companies. And that's how I actually got to know a lot of other companies and people in these companies. So find a motivation for yourself. I guess that's tip number one. Okay, so I basically divide the entire placement preparation, internship, and development, and all of these things into a 4-year process. These 4 years can be your graduation years. Maybe if you're in a 5-year degree, then you can do it like a little more spaced out. But this is definitely the minimum common ground that we have in these degrees. So in the first year, I would recommend almost everyone who is aiming for these top shot companies to work on only DSA. And not just DSA that you know from 12th standard, work on DSA that is going to get taught in 3rd year as well. Learn about trees, learn about graphs, learn about hash maps and things like that. Learn everything. Why am I saying this? It's only because that first year is super easy. Super easy. Most of the topics that you are learning in first year has already been taught to you in 12th grade. You are coming from JEE mains and things like that. So this is easy. So you have a lot of free time. Make use of it. You don't get free time once you're in 3rd year or maybe in the latter half of 2nd year. You don't get free time at all in 4th year unless you already have a job and your project is complete. Okay. So first year dedicated entirely on first thing DSA and second bit making friends matters. I'll let you know why. Second year, first half definitely goes to DSA again. But the second year, second half, which comes from around December, is dedicated towards learning a technology, learning a skill set rather than just DSA. So for me, it was data science. I went for a data science research internship where I actually was working with Russian companies. And the thing is that when you do this internship, your growth curve rises exponentially within a span of 1 to 2 months. Okay, so that's very necessary for the part that I'm proceeding for in the 3rd year. In the 3rd year, I have reserved it exclusively for people participating in several hackathons and hiring competitions. For the sole reason that whenever you look at these hackathons, you look at this demographic, just do a random survey at any hackathon that you go through. And even if you can get a little bit of leaked data from somewhere for these hackathons, one thing you'll recognize is that these hackathons are flooded with people who are extremely underqualified. These people are usually first year students. These people are usually who don't know a lot of programming and are from backgrounds like ECE and mechanical and chemical. Okay. They aren't extremely coding heavy, guys, but at the same time, they have an enthusiasm for it, and that's why they're sitting there. But at the same time, there are some guys who are making the most of this opportunity and they're doing a lot of coding, a lot of development, things like that. Now, suppose you are one of those people who knows a lot of DSA from your first year, who knows one skill set from your second year internship. Now you are at a position that is much higher than most people there. What you have to do is make use of this position and get a hold of the company that has come there, get a hold of the HR that has come there, increase your networking, get yourself referred and things like that. This is how I approached my entire internship life actually. I did not directly wait for my college to apply for, for my college to bring in companies to me and then I sit for them, because I just don't believe that is the best way to go, because if I'm sitting for a company, there's a very high chance that other 300 people with me are also sitting for that company. Now I have to fight against 300 very well prepared students for the same company, which is providing only 5 to 10 seats. Probability is against me. But if I'm competing against a large crowd of unqualified people who don't know a lot about programming, who aren't very well spoken, and I'm developing moderate MVPs that can be sold to these hiring managers and things like that who come to those events, there's a very high chance of me getting hired there. And the fact is, when you go to these hackathons, most of these companies are hiring for very high packages. For example, PhonePe recently hired for 31 lakhs at IIT Dhanbad hackathon. And that hackathon was flooded, absolutely flooded with first year students and second year students. Okay. And at the end of the day, even the question statement that they provided, people had to choose if they wanted to perform on that question statement or not. And out of 300 teams, only 12 teams participated in that. Now you have to just compete against 12 into 4, 48 students. 48 students for a position role that will provide you a salary package of 31 lakhs. You need to reduce the amount of competition you're facing. The way you do it is entirely up to you. This is one of the ways. If you can get yourself a referral that directly lands you in the first round of an interview, that is amazing. Most people don't do it after they have joined companies. But I would recommend this way for people who are, in first, second, and third year. Definitely not first and second, but yeah, third year. And the fourth year is definitely, reserved for your college projects and internships if you're doing it. But at the same time, if you haven't secured an internship in third year that gives you a PPO in your fourth year, you might as well work every waking moment towards it. You need to work on DSA and DBMS exclusively if you're sitting for these companies, because that's something that I've observed. Most companies don't talk about CN. Excuse me. Most companies don't talk about CN, which is computer networks. Most companies don't talk a lot about OS, which is operating system. They also don't talk about compiler design. They also don't talk about computer architecture and organization. So you need to understand that by just doing 2 subjects, you can actually ace these interviews, as long as your DSA is strong enough to get to those interviews. Okay. So that's how I divide my workload in first, second, third, and fourth year. I never believed in the fact that I'll be able to become a DSA genius within 3 months of practice. It has never happened. My seniors told it that it will never happen to you, because I was not a person who was all into DSA. From the get-go, I was always into development and things like that. So they always told me, like, you do it from the first year itself, you're doing development. Okay, so what did I learn from it? So I have worked with several startups. I have created my own startups. I work with companies now. Okay, I do freelancing. So there's a lot of things that I got to know. I have actually also hired a lot of people. So there's something that I got to know that is something that I feel lacks among students that have only the perspective of a person who is sitting for an interview rather than a perspective of a person who is taking an interview. You need to know both sides of the table if you're sitting in that field, right? So I'll just tell you what I learned and how I have implemented it and how you can implement it as well. Okay. So the first thing first, I've already told this, work on DSA. Also, know your company before you sit for it. So if you know your company that, they are working on very developer-heavy projects, they're working on web dev, app dev, and things like that, maybe like Oracle, they're going to ask you questions that are exclusively aimed towards hash maps, arrays, dynamic list, and linked lists, and things like that. They aren't going to ask you very heavy dynamic programming questions. Most of the time, they aren't going to ask you very tough questions, which can be from trees and graphs. But at the same time, if you're sitting for companies like fintech companies, like Goldman Sachs, PhonePe, Paytm, JustPay, these companies will definitely ask you a lot of trees and graphs. So you need to understand that you need to divide your workload very carefully 3 days before the interview actually happens, because those 3 days define what is in your current memory. If your current memory is flooded with all kinds of algorithms, there's a very high chance that you're going to mess up in that interview. But if you're like, the current memory is actually, flooded with only algorithms that are very probable to be asked in that interview, then you'll perform extremely well in that interview. Giving you an example, if you have seen JustPay, the company which creates Amazon's payment gateway, if you, I have sat for that interview. If you look at that interview, you will find that 99% of the questions are from trees, and they have been doing this for the past 5 years. They will ask you the same questions every year. Same question, trees. 3 hour questions, trees. 3 questions, trees. This is how it has happened for the past 5 years. And they haven't changed, and people still fail that exam. It's ridiculous. So that's what I'm trying to say. Do your research before you even sit for the exam. Look at the type of questions they have asked before. Try to extrapolate it to your time as well. Well, this is for the first and second year students who are actually getting into the development side of things. Don't care about the language. Master a singular domain. Okay. What I mean by this is most students will actually approach me and ask me like, what language should I learn? Which language is the best? Answer to that is very difficult, and I don't think there is actually a conclusive answer to that question. What I usually ask these people is, what do you want to do with yourself? Do you want to do just development, or do you want to do just DSA, or do you want to do a mixture of both? If they say that I want to do just DSA, sit in front of CodeChef for like 10 hours a day, and then at the end of fourth year, hopefully get a placement, then I would definitely recommend them to go for either C++ or Java, because that has worked for many people. Okay, but at the same time, if they say that I want to develop some solutions and actually make a little bit of side hustle on the side, so I would tell them to go for a MERN stack approach. A MERN stack is basically Mongo, Express, React, Node. It is a beautiful stack, and it is extremely easy, and most people can pick it up very quickly. If a person tells me that I want to work with data science and analytics and things like that, I would actually not recommend them to go for programming ASAP. I would recommend them to brush up on their calculus 2, 3, and 4 before they even step into the Python domain, because anybody can learn Python. Honestly, anybody can learn Python within 3 to 4 days. So you might as well just focus on your mathematics, because data science is more or less you reading a lot of research papers, finding inferences from it, reproducing those solutions there into your own solution. So that requires a lot of mathematical understanding. One of the major reasons why I actually strayed away from this data science, because even though I was good at mathematics, I did not enjoy it a lot. So I would only recommend it to people who enjoy mathematics a lot. But take into consideration, most of the data science companies actually demand experience beforehand. So you might get a data analytics role, but at the same time, you won't get a data scientist role. The third role that I don't recommend a lot of people is basically DevOps and cybersecurity, because this is also very experience-heavy roles. And the last role is Flutter, Java, React stack, which is basically the Android stack, the dynamic Android stack, used for developing progressive web apps and things like that. This is a very great stack. So if you know MERN, picking up this stack is actually very easy. So currently, I work on MERN and Android stack both at the same time. So that's why it has been very easy for me to move from website development to Android development, things like that. I jump between both of them without any effort. So you can learn either of these stacks and you'll be good to go. Okay, so why do I tell you guys to develop a lot of these things? You need to understand that just by learning how a data structure works is not enough. You need to create solutions in it. You need to develop solutions and implement it by yourself, write code by yourself, solve other people's problems to make so that you can understand these data structures in depth. Then is the only time that these things will actually stay in your mind. Once you have developed something by your hands, like this is the same thing as learning cycling. Somebody can tell you the entire day how to balance a cycle and things like that, and how to paddle a cycle. But at the same time, until and unless you have done it by yourself, until and unless you have rode the cycle in all kinds of environments, there is a very high chance that you will fall from the cycle very soon. So that's what I recommend to most people. Develop solution, develop software from all the things that you have learned. And to do that, you need these 3 things. These 3 things were recommended to me by my seniors, and they were recommended to them by their seniors. What they actually tell us to do is learn one relational database, which I know you guys will learn. I know SQL is taught in most colleges, so I'm not going to fret upon that. But I would also encourage you guys to learn one non-relational database, because most of the data that you get in the market is actually very unstructured and very garbage type of data. So you need to make sense out of the data, and MongoDB helps you a lot for that. So that's the first. Second thing, learn a scripting language. So giving you an example, these are scripting languages, basically Node.js, Python, and Java, Django, Flask, things like that. But why do you need to know these? Suppose you develop a solution, you know the solution is very good. It can actually solve a very big problem, and you're proud of it. You're extremely proud of it. You show it to your friends, you tell them to come to your room, and what's the solution that I made. They'll be happy with you. They'll be proud of you. You can actually show your professors as well. Like, see, I made the solution. You can take your laptop with them. But at the same time, you need to understand you can't take your laptop all across the world. They need to see the solution somewhere, and they need to see it quickly. Most people won't even touch your GitHub repository when it comes to solutions. Okay. So until and unless your solution is deployed on the cloud somewhere, somehow, there's a very low chance that the solution is actually reaching the people that you want it to reach. So even an interviewer is actually actively looking for deployed solutions, deployed projects and things like that, instead of just projects that are in GitHub. Because most people have projects in GitHub. At the same time, me, by just seeing code, cannot even tell you that the code is working or not working, how good that code works, or how beautiful it is. I can't tell you that by just looking at GitHub code. So you need to deploy the solutions. Okay, and that's where scripting languages come in. One scripting language that I would recommend you guys is definitely Node, because it's asynchronous and super fast. Okay, and the last is actually the fork route. Okay, you can either go for database design, which I went for, or you can go for front end and become a full stack developer. Going for front end requires you to have a little bit of artistic tendencies, but I didn't have them. So I went for actually database design. I actually went on to become a hardcore backend developer who can develop a lot of good solutions, most of them. Okay, so next thing is, this is something that I learned the hard way, one of my failures actually. Okay, I will answer your questions at the end, Weber. Give me a second. Okay, this is something that I learned very late and in a very brutal way. So I was the kind of person who used to ask a lot of questions, to my seniors and things like that. And actually, I did this to a point that they got annoyed with me. Okay, and that's not a good position to be in. What they realize is the answer to most questions is on Google. And if this person is constantly approaching me for this solution, there's a very high chance that this person is lazy. Don't want to put that image into someone else's mind. You don't want them to show that you're lazy. So what I would recommend you guys to do is to understand how Stack Overflow works, basically. How documentation and reading is done, how you use Google to find out your solutions, how to use the right keywords and things like that. Don't expect spoon feeding. It's not going to happen. Corporate world, I don't think it has barely ever happened that you get spoon fed solutions. So get ready for that. Okay, learn to pitch your ideas. This slide, in conjunction with another slide that actually comes 2 slides after this, is basically the same thing. What I'm basically trying to tell you guys is the soft skills part. You need to understand that the problem that you have, the solution that you have produced for that problem, needs to be conveyed to people who are the real stakeholders in that problem. Okay, these are basically your investors. Either your investors if you're pitching for a startup, this can be your boss if you're pitching for a project, this can be your client if you're pitching for a freelance, and this can also be a person who does not know programming, but at the same time is challenging your product. You need to know how to pitch your idea, how you can say the idea out loud eloquently and things like that. But at the same time, you need to understand that just pitching won't suffice for interviews. Okay, whenever an interview happens, 100% of these interviews do not go well at one point of time. Suppose if it's a 30-minute interview, at least 10 to 5 minutes of it would be pressure testing. This is where the interviewer actually grills you upon the bad part of your resume, or the bad parts of something that you have done, or maybe based on some questions that you didn't answer correctly, they're grilling you based on that. You need to understand that if this happens in the middle of the interview, it is more or less okay. But at the same time, if it happens at the start of the interview or at the end of the interview, that is going to leave a very bad taste in the mouth. Okay, after they leave the interview. Something that you would definitely try to avoid. And the only way to go about this is to actually, learn the redirection. You can learn redirection through actual debating with your friends in English, definitely. Debating over civilized topics, debating over technology topics, debating over non-technical topics. And this is how you actually build, a strength towards defending yourself, defending your argument and things like that. So an interviewer, for an example, could actually tell you that you have very bad marks in your sixth semester mathematics. How is it justified for you to apply for this role for data analytics? Okay, this is a very probable question that they can ask you. Okay, so what you need to understand is that you can tell them is that, uh, see, I definitely accept that I had bad marks in sixth semester. It is, and I don't make any excuses for it. But at the same time, over the past 3 years, I have participated in several hackathons. I have been at managerial position for my college events. I have also shipped out software solutions for other companies, and most of these solutions are actually data analytics based. So I do have experience at corporate and sales level for data analytics related products. So even though I did get one bad semester, I got one semester wrong and bad. That does not justify over trump the fact that I have done all of these things in a very short amount of time. This will actually highlight your success over your weakness in your entire presentation and your interview section. So this is something that you should practice on. Acknowledge your weakness. Acknowledge that you actually made a mistake in maybe first, second, or third year. Maybe something is wrong with your resume. Maybe you answered a question wrong. But at the same time, you should have some sort of content in your resume, something that you have done that you can tell them to justify that, yes, I did a bad thing. That is only because I was doing 10 different good things at the same time. And that actually leaves a very good, extracurricular background for the student who's getting interviewed. Okay. This is for first and second year students. Explore your strengths before before the time runs out. Because the thing is, the sad reality is, whenever you look at software industry, most of these people have a very high attrition rate. They join companies, they stay there for 2 to 3 years, and then they bounce. They'll actually go for MBAs and MIMs, MSc, and things like that. So what I ask these people is, if you knew that you were going to do an MBA, if you knew that you were not interested in this, why did you join this company? You could have done so much better if you didn't do this. So this can only happen if you know what you're good at. Just because people have told you to do coding, you should not stick to coding. This is something that I learned very early on. When I was doing coding, I made it a point at every other college that I went to participate in a coding competition. I also participated in something that was not coding related. And somehow or the other, I found out that I have a knack for business management. I have a knack for marketing. I have a knack for product management and things like that. So this is where I got to understand that I am not just a programmer. I am a lot more than that. And there are some stuff that I like more than I like programming. Okay. So you need to understand that about yourself as well. Just because you are doing software engineering right now, that does not mean you're going to do it for the rest of your life. The sooner you recognize what your strengths are, the better it is, the more you can work on it. So this can be readily done in first, second, and third year. So definitely I would recommend you guys to try it out. This is my tech stack. If you guys want to take a screenshot of it, you can take it. But this is one of the easiest tech stacks that I've worked on. Okay. And this is the last thing that I tell to most people is to learn software engineering to be financially independent, because it is a skill that can make you financially independent in a very small amount of time. Okay, giving you an example, I have friends, and even I do freelancing. So I have friends whose salary range from around 80K to 90K per month. Okay, and on the second, when they get home, they take projects from other companies and other individuals, private ownership, 100% private ownership. And these projects are sold for 12 to 20K per project. And these projects take almost 1 or 2 days to build. The person builds around 4 projects a month, makes around 40 to 60K extra every month. and he boosts his salary up to 1.5 lakhs a month. That's his net income for 1 month. Instead of just 80K and then living a normal life, he actually makes 1.5K and then lives a relatively happier life. So that's something that you can do for the rest of your life. And you have understood this in the COVID scenario as well, that you are working for the companies, not with the companies. There's a very big difference between that. When the companies goes to loss and the world is in a very big turmoil, the first people to get fired is actually the lower level people. Software developers, SDE1. These are the people that get fired very quickly, and they are basically a cost to the company for a very long time. Okay, so you need to understand that you can be fired any day because of some level of automation that has happened. Maybe you were working in HR operations and the entire HR operations team got automated because of some AI. They will hire just 10 people to manage that AI, and the rest of the people will get sacked. So you need to understand that you need to have some level of skills and some level of dependability upon yourself so that you can make money regardless of if someone is paying you or not. So that's something that I learned very early on, and I follow it religiously. So I think maybe the guest speaker can join in because I'm done with the presentation and I'm open for questions. I will take your questions, but I think your alumnus is joining, I believe. If somebody can correct me on that.
That was a wonderful session, sir. Now we will take up the question and answer round. I will request all the attendees to post their queries in the chat box and also request the attendees to stay till the end because we have something special planned for you.
Okay. So I'll take the questions that are in the comment section. How much time should we spend on all of these placement related subjects? How much time do you have? Actually, that's the question. Whatever the part of time you have, make use of it. So you have 16 hours of waking hours during the day. Around 6 to 8 hours will go to your college. If you're in Corona pandemic, working from home, learning from home, you have around 10 hours a day to devote to yourself. So I would say out of these 10 hours, use at least 50% of it towards yourself only, and maybe the rest. So 5 hours, I definitely recommend you to devote initially towards learning data structures and things like that. And whatever's left, you can actually work on other things. You can actually hang out with your friends and things like that because life should not be just data structures. So 5 hours a day for data structures and everything else. This includes everything. If you're doing freelancing, doing development, you're learning development, everything, split it into a 2:3 ratio and just do it. Why did you mention web development? I did mention I am a web developer at heart. I just do Android development for customers' sake because customers want everything on their cell phones. Sir, can you please explain some more placement opportunities in data science? Okay. So the first thing that you will get a lot is analyst role. Analyst roles are basically people who are learning how to become a proper data analyst too. Okay. So this is one of the most common roles. Second would be a business analyst where you're working with Excel. You're actually also sitting in some meetings that are very high stakes and making inferences from there. This is other data science, technically not data science, data analytics role. Machine learning engineer at graduate engineer level is very tough to find. I have found some people to do it, but at the same time, it took that person a lot. So the person who actually cracked Goldman Sachs machine learning engineering role was initially appointed web development for Kafka and Node.js. He only could do it after he showed every person in the HR zone of his college that, see, I have developed all these solutions in machine learning. I have all these projects and things like that. I am constantly on the top charts of the leaderboards in Kaggle, and that's why he got it. So your projects matter a lot even after you enter the company if you want to prove a point. Do research papers matter in placement? It gives you a slight bit of it, but honestly, it does not. The companies don't care about what you have done. They just care about the output. After just completing third year, main focus should be on what preparation. After you have completed third year and considering you don't have a placement yet, your focus should be entirely on DBMS and DSA only, exclusively. Okay, because there are websites that can give you the brief notes for operating systems any day. So just focus on DBMS, case studies, DBMS case studies, and things like that, and also focus on DSA a lot, a lot, a lot. In organization, do we need to do an MBA for getting promotion to higher roles? No. The reason why you don't need MBA until a very high level is because you don't like suppose you enter a SDE role, okay, 3 roles above it, I think until 3 or 4 roles above it are entirely technical and product management level. And these are also guys who are either MBA in IT department, or they are guys who have a lot of experience from other companies and they're just working there. So no, you don't need MBA to climb up the ladder, but at the same time, you need to understand what I have heard from my family members, and this is entirely subjective. This can be objective for you for other parts of the reality. But what I've heard is after a point, you reach a point of stagnation that can only be conquered if you have an MBA. And this is entirely management level stagnation. So you need to learn a certain amount of it. Even if you look up most of the successful these CEOs, you will see that they were technical for a major part of their career life, but at some point of the time they had to do an MBA. Considering that, if they needed it, might as well you do it. I will give you my LinkedIn at the end. Just give me a second. Any tips and guidance for on-campus placements on the basis of companies visiting our college? I don't really know about your college that well. I don't know which companies are coming, but more or less, most of these companies ask the same thing. You need to get sorted with your DSA, man. If your DSA is not sorted, your soft skills are not on point, absolutely on point. If you can't speak very well, if you can't speak for 1 hour, so I take these sessions where I talk to students for over an hour almost every day. I'm helping out students like that. So you need to have this capability of talking for over an hour, because this actually gives you the confidence to speak in front of everyone and anyone. That person can be the CEO of Microsoft and you'll be able to talk to him for an hour. And that's a very respectable skill. Okay, so this matters. It matters. So get your soft skills sorted because it takes a lot of time, but at the same time, work on your DSA. Do some projects, man. Do some projects. For pursuing MBA, most colleges demand work experience. Should we focus a bit on placements? If you're working in India and you want an MBA college in India, if you want to look at the statistics, you will actually see that 23 to 30% of the entire batch is actually freshers. These are students who have come out of arts colleges, commerce colleges, and engineering colleges. If 25% of the entire student is from these colleges, you would also recognize that people with 1 or 2 years of experience is actually very less. It's lesser than 25. It's somewhere around 18%. But after 2 years, you will find that the majority is after 2 years, which is somewhere around 30%. Okay, so if you want to do 2 years of experience just to get into an MBA, which you can actually get into an MBA for like the almost same probability, which is 1/4 instead of 3/10, you can make the decision there. That's something that depends on you, but you need to understand that just 1 year of experience does not matter. Do you need to be good at UI UX in order to be a good product manager? No, there are people for that. See, you can't be good at everything. You need to understand your weaknesses and hire accordingly. If you know that you're very bad at artistic sense, it is okay. You can always get a consultant for that. Can I work on DS Algo and learning ML parallelly, or should I focus on one domain at a time? Okay, this is what I told you guys for the first and second year. Okay, so first year entirely work on DSA, second year half work on DSA. This latter half of second year you're working on ML, but at the same time you're working on DSA. Okay, your workload increases. So definitely you can do it. I did it. Most of my friends did it. So it's not tough. But you need to understand that if you're doing two things, you need to be good at two things. You can't just do something with half efficiency and something with 100% efficiency. So it depends on you how much efficiency you want to put in it. Sir, if you want to go into the data science field, should we spend more time on data structures and subjects as on-campus opportunities or less for the same? Okay. See, that's what I told. You will not get a lot of data science roles as a fresher. Just isn't possible. Things just aren't your way. Okay. People do require a lot of experience when they look for data scientists and machine learning engineers, and we sadly don't have it. So the better route for you to go is to learn the basics. Go for data analytics roles, which I believe most colleges provide. If not, look off campus for data analytics role, which basically requires you to know a lot of Python, a lot of SQL, and a little bit of mathematics, and you can do it. Climb the ladder from there, and then you will be. Unless you won some Kaggle competition and things like that, yeah, then you can do it, definitely. If you want to get into data science roles from the get-go, participate a lot in Kaggle and be in the top 50. So we also have a live at YouTube. So below is the doubt from YouTube viewers. Okay, hello sir, I have not started learning the Python language, but I want to learn modern language. I am in the third year. So first I should learn DSA or should I learn modern language? This gets back to the same argument that is made by most people. Should I learn DSA or should I learn modern? Both. You need to understand that with the DSA, you can form solutions, but at the same time, MERN is required to deploy solutions. Until and unless you don't have a DSA, you building portfolio websites is not going to land you into a very good place in your life. Okay, so learn DSA, try to develop solutions. Once you know you have solutions, deploy the solutions on the cloud, and you can use MERN for that. The sequence I would go for is learn DSA, learn one good language, which can either be Java, one object-oriented language, and then go for MERN. Because even in MERN, people will look at a solution, but also they will look at your code quality. If you don't follow double OP, use this. So what is your suggestions on higher studies? I am a very big fan of education. So I would prefer what I see from trends is in my father's generation, getting a single degree was enough to fetch you a very good job. But now that we see that getting a one degree is not enough, so I would definitely recommend you to get another degree for something. And definitely it helps you in your career as well. So I'd encourage it if you want to do it. But at the same time, it is not necessary. Nothing is necessary. In the third point, you mentioned I should avoid tough questions. We should do a few projects. So how many easy projects in neural network? Are there any easy projects in neural network that are worth looking at? Okay. I never told you to avoid tough questions. I always told you to have a contradictory argument for their questions. Okay. Second thing, you creating an easy project in neural network is the same thing as you working on linked list. Okay, you have created linked list. Okay, most people haven't worked on linked list, but at the same time, is it very valuable? No. You need to understand that as well. Easy projects in neural networks makes no sense. You might as well do something which is worthwhile. So the best place to do it is either Analytics Vidya or Numer AI or Kaggle. So how to apply data structure solution to your software? You just need to solve the questions in Code Studio. So the solutions are very easy. Actually, if you understand that, how do I explain this? There are some APIs. Giving an example, there are some APIs that require you to have a certain level of rate limiter in them. And this rate limiter needs to have a static data background. Okay. And if you cannot create an algorithm that also has a static data background and also has a rate limiter implemented in itself and is also working constantly on a server, you don't solve that problem. So what I need you to understand is you need to understand how loops work, how delayed loops work, how recursions work, how delayed recursions work, how asynchronous loops work. Okay, until and unless you don't understand how these structures work, data structures work, there's a very high chance that you won't be able to solve this problem. So answer to your question is basically understand data structures, implement simple solutions that you see in your daily life. If you see a person struggling with automating an Excel sheet, create an algorithm that automates Excel sheet and then give it to that person. He will be very happy. He will actually ask you to automate something else. He will actually ask you to automate something for his parents. Then those parents will actually ask you to automate something for his chacha or whatever, who is a businessman. And you are just 2 to 3 jumps away from reaching a very good businessman who's going to pay you a lot for it. Okay, you're not very far from a person who will pay you a lot for it. You just need to understand how to reach there. What should be the focus going into companies like Goldman Sachs? Dynamic programming, DSA, and extracurriculars. Definitely dynamic programming, because most of my friends got asked dynamic programming. I'm not good at dynamic. Just saying. What is the ideal pathway to become a DS or DSA? What is a DS? Data scientist. And what is a DSA? Data structure and algorithms. Ideal pathway? There is no ideal pathway. It depends on you, man. I don't think there is a short question for it, but yeah, definitely. Getting your basics cleared and developing a few solutions goes a long way. When and where and how are we supposed to apply for internships in top MNCs? You don't. You need to apply for hackathons that are hiring for top MNCs. That is the easier way to go. If you apply in top MNCs and your college has a very high reputation value, then is the only chance that they're going to hire you from LinkedIn and things like that. If they don't, then they don't. But in hackathons, you have a very high chance of getting hired just because of the solution, regardless of your college, regardless of your background, regardless if you have a backlog or not. So that is the easier way. Could you give some project ideas that resume gets shortlisted easily? Create a Discord bot that avoids spams and also sends funny memes. I guess that works out. It is a very simple project, but at the same time, you're making use of algorithms, you're making use of APIs, you're also creating a spam filtration mechanism, which is built on either LSTMs or neural networks, and you're also creating a recommendation system or a pseudo-random meme generator. All of these things are very complicated things. My idea seems funny, but at the same time, it requires a lot of algorithm knowledge. Your views on full-time Flutter dev, go for it. I have a few Flutter developers working under me. So there are a lot of people who are doing that. And you can go for it, but at the same time, you need to understand that the technology is very, very, very new. So getting your basics sorted out in Flutter will help you move towards web development as well. So don't worry about it. Should we go for MBA or MTech or companies like GS? I have no clue about that because I'm not in Goldman Sachs. I completed my college this year, so I enter hackathons that are hiring. If not, see, I don't think companies hire students who have graduated from hackathons. So I would not recommend it. Get referrals, man. Get referrals. Get a lot of referrals. Call up your friends. They will help you. Okay, I guess that was all the questions.
Thank you, Professor, for having such a wonderful session and for getting all our doubts and queries answered.
I'll post my LinkedIn. Give me a second.
Sure, sir. Hope to have much more sessions in the future. We will also like to thank our HOD, Kirti Gupta ma'am, and mentors Jolly ma'am and Yogananda Malhotra ma'am for gracing us with their presence. Thank you for supporting and being there with us throughout. We would also like to thank our collaborative partner, Coding Ninjas, for joining and organizing such a great event. Now, I would like to thank you everyone for being such a great audience. Before leaving, the special thing that we have for you, is that Coding Ninja is providing discount vouchers for all the participants. So kindly fill out the feedback form for receiving the discount voucher from Coding Ninjas. Hope to see you soon tomorrow with another great event where we'll be having more seniors placed in companies like EY, ZS, TCS, and many more. The link for the same will be shared to you through your mail IDs and through WhatsApp group. So do join in our group. The link is shared in the chat box. Till then, I, Kunal Agarwal, sign off for the day. Stay safe. To attend more such insightful events, follow us on our social media handles on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Thank you. Please do not forget to fill out the feedback form to avail your discount voucher. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me.